History, it usually loves the guys with shiny shoes who never left land. But the ocean, well, the ocean remembers the names of the ones who never came back. It remembers their quiet prayers in the loud wind, how they held tight to a worn-out rope, and the quiet bravery that kept their world together when everything else was falling apart. These are the sailors who connected the planet with ropes and tough hands, yet somehow we forgot about them. They were the engine of big empires, the hidden power behind world trade, and the heart of trips that redrew maps. Their stories aren't just small notes in someone else's big tale. They are the main story, written in salt water and sacrifice. These unsung heroes, many of them our very own countrymen, sailed not just dangerous waters but also through times of control by other countries, war, and being forgotten. Their dedication was their guide, their strength, the anchor that stayed strong in the worst storms. From the shipyards of Cavite to the battlefields of America, from the deep parts of the Pacific to today's trading ships, their legacy is as big and deep as the ocean itself. But for too long, their names have been lost to time, their contributions huge, their recognition small. Let's fix that right now. Imagine this. 400 years ago, a big storm hits a wooden ship in the middle of the Pacific. The tall pole of the ship breaks like a twig, seawater is rushing in, and the only thing keeping the ship going is a 19-year-old kid from Visayas who won't leave his spot. You don't know his name yet, but by the end of this journey, you'll never forget it. We're going deep into the forgotten stories of 10 Filipino sailors whose bravery changed history. These are the stories that should not be forgotten. Join me. For 250 years, they were the main support of the world's first truly global trade route. The Manila-Acapulco galleon trade wasn't just about silk and silver. It was built on the hard work, skill, and often the lives of Filipino sailors. In the busy shipyards of Cavite, Bagatao, and Marinduque, it was the hands of Filipino carpenters known as Maestros de Ribera who turned our excellent hardwoods, Molave, Lawan, Yacal, into amazing floating forts that could handle the dangerous Pacific crossing. They weren't just workers, they were artists and engineers, their knowledge of local wood so deep that Spanish writers were amazed at how these ships were practically made by Filipinos. Their dedication was carved into every piece of wood. Once at sea, the trip was a very hard test of strength. A journey could last 6 months, sometimes longer. Crowded, dirty conditions were normal. Sickness, like scurvy and beriberi, was always on board, often more deadly than any storm. Yet it was the Filipino crew, the deckhands, the gunners, the riggers, who were the most important part of the operation. They were the ones climbing the very tall masts to fix sails in a storm, the ones who knew the Pacific Ocean's moods like the back of their hand. They were paid very little compared to their Spanish co-workers, but their skill was priceless. Their strength was the hidden cargo that made sure the ships reached their destination. This tough trade became a mixed blessing. It brought a lot of money to the Spanish king, but at a great cost to the Filipino people. The Polo Y Servicios, or forced labor system, took thousands of men from their farms and families to work hard in the shipyards or on the high seas, many never to return. Yet, their impact is clear. These unknown pioneers were the first Filipinos to cross the world's largest ocean, connecting Asia to the Americas long before the idea of a global community existed. They were the original OFWs, their sacrifices setting the stage for a sea tradition that continues to this day. They are the hidden figures in global history. The year is 1769. The Spanish Empire, worried about Russia moving down the Pacific coast, started the sacred expedition to create the first lasting European towns in what we now call California. The main ship of this sea trip was the San Carlos, a supply ship carrying soldiers, missionaries, and a crew made up almost entirely of Filipinos. They set sail from La Paz, Mexico, on a journey that was supposed to take a few weeks. Instead, it became a trip into a living nightmare, showing the quiet, steady dedication of its forgotten crew. Among them was a man named Felipe Buencamino, one of the few whose name is still found in the ship's log. Like the rest of the Filipino sailors, he was a skilled navigator, experienced from the galleon trade. But no amount of experience could prepare them for what happened next. Hit by storms and troubled by bad maps, their journey stretched from weeks to 110 painful days. The ship's water barrels leaked, mixing their fresh water with salt water. Their food supplies rotted, And then came the deadliest enemy of all on the high seas, scurvy. The disease destroyed the ship, a slow, painful sickness that makes teeth fall out and limbs swell. By the time the San Carlos slowly made its way into San Diego Bay, it was like a ghost ship. Of the more than 60 men who had set sail, only a few were still able to stand. Almost the entire Filipino crew had died from scurvy and starvation. Felipe Buencamino and his friends had given up everything, their bodies literally wasting away to make sure the expedition's cargo and passengers reached their destination. Their deaths were the sad, unseen base upon which the cities of California, from San Diego to San Francisco, were built. They died so that an empire's dream could live, their names erased by the very history they helped create. Long before the first shots of the American Civil War, another battle for the heart of America was fought in the swampy areas of Louisiana. And at the center of that fight were a group of unexpected heroes, Filipino sailors. Known as Manila Men, they were descendants of the galleon sailors who had left their ships in Acapulco and traveled across Mexico to the Gulf Coast. By the early 1800s, they had built successful fishing villages like St. Malo, creating the first lasting Filipino settlement in the United States. They lived quiet lives, experts of the swamp, until history came calling in 1815. The British were moving towards New Orleans, planning to take control of the Mississippi River and weaken the young American nation. General Andrew Jackson was desperate for men who knew the dangerous local waterways. He found them in the Manila Men and Jean Lafitte's group of pirates and privateers. These Filipino sailors, who were not even American citizens, promised their loyalty. They joined the Baratarians, a diverse fighting group that would become famous. Among them was a man named Augusto Feliciano, a skilled gunner whose story shows the bravery of his community. During the important Battle of New Orleans, the Manila Men's knowledge was vital. They helped operate the cannons, their steady hands and sharp eyes, made keen by years at sea, proving very effective against the incoming British soldiers. Augusto Feliciano and his friends fought with a fierce spirit that surprised both the British and their fellow Americans. They weren't just fighting for a piece of land, they were defending their homes, their families, and their new community. Their dedication helped secure one of the most important wins in American history, showing that being a patriot isn't about where you were born, but what you are willing to fight for. In the very last desperate days of World War II, the large warship USS Indianapolis finished a top-secret mission, delivering parts for the atomic bomb to the island of Tinian. Days later, on July 30th, 1945, while sailing alone in the Philippine Sea, it was hit by 2 Japanese torpedoes. The ship sank in just 12 minutes, sending nearly 900 men into the dark, shark-filled waters. What followed was one of the biggest sea disasters in United States Navy history, and a story of amazing, forgotten bravery by a Filipino steward. His full name is lost to history, known only as Trinidad in accounts from survivors. He was one of many Filipinos who served in the U.S. Navy as stewards, a job often looked down upon, given to serving officers. But when trouble broke out, ranks and roles disappeared. In the water, there were only survivors and the dead. Trinidad, despite his own injuries and the terrible scene around him, showed the ultimate act of dedication. He found a small group of scared, hurt young sailors, many of whom couldn't swim well. He became their strong support. For days, under the hot sun and through the cold nights, Trinidad kept them together. He gathered the men into a circle to stay warm and protect against shark attacks. He gave away his own life jacket to a sailor who had none. He paddled constantly, keeping the group floating and fighting off confusion, offering words of encouragement when there seemed to be no hope. When a rescue plane finally spotted them after nearly 5 days, only 317 of the nearly 900 men who went into the water were still alive. Many of those who survived from Trinidad's group said they were alive because of the selfless Filipino steward who refused to let them die. Trinidad himself did not survive, his body giving in to the harsh conditions just before rescue. He was a hero with no last name, a steward who became a savior. The date is January 16, 1942. The place is Culis, Bataan. The combined American and Filipino forces are in a desperate fighting retreat against the invading Japanese army. A Filipino mess sergeant named Jose Calugas, part of the Philippine Scouts, is working at his assigned post, the kitchen, preparing food for the troops. Suddenly, he hears a very loud silence. A nearby friendly artillery battery, a very important part of the defense line, has stopped firing. The gun's crew had all been killed or badly hurt by enemy bombs. Without orders, without thinking, Sergeant Kalugas puts down his spoon and makes a decision that will make his name famous in military history. He runs. He sprints through 1,000 yards of open field, a place filled with constant Japanese bombs and machine gun fire. It was a very dangerous run. Bullets and metal pieces tore up the ground around him, but he never stopped. He reached the silent 75mm cannon, a single person against a huge force. He found the crew dead or dying. With no one left to help him, Kalugas, a cook by himself, got the cannon firing again. He organized a group of volunteers from a nearby unit who, inspired by his incredibly brave act, ran out to help him. For the rest of the afternoon, this temporary gun crew, led by a mess sergeant, held the line. They provided important cover fire, allowing their fellow soldiers to get ready and prepare for a counterattack. His single-handed stand prevented a terrible breakdown of the defense line. José Kalugas would survive the battle, the terrible Bataan Death March, and years as a prisoner of war. After the war, his dedication was recognized with the Medal of Honor, the highest United States military award, making him the first Filipino to ever receive it. In the 1960s, a new wave began to rise in Hampton Roads, Virginia, home to the world's largest naval base. This wave wasn't made of water, but of people. Thousands of Filipino men, looking for chances and a way to become American citizens, joined the United States Navy. Because of strict rules at the time, most were put into one job: steward. They cooked, they cleaned, they served. But what they truly did was build a community from nothing, changing the culture of an entire area. One of these pioneers was Lito Ramirez. Arriving in the late 1960s, Lito, like so many others, started his naval career in the officers' dining area. The work was hard and often unappreciated, very different from his home in the Philippines. But he and his fellow sailors shared a quiet understanding of pakikisama. They supported each other, putting their small salaries together to send money home, creating a family far from their own. They were dedicated not just to their duties on the ship, but to each other. This shared spirit became the base of a new Filipino-American identity. After their service, many, like Lito, chose to live in Hampton Roads. They opened the first Filipino grocery stores, restaurants, and community centers. They helped relatives come to the United States, creating a chain of migration that grew the Filipino population from a few hundred to over 50,000 today. Lito Ramirez, the quiet steward, became a community leader, a successful business owner, and a guide to a new generation. The story of the Hampton Roads wave is the story of how a generation of sailors limited to the kitchen expanded their world beyond the ship's walls, turning a stopover port into a place to call home. The night of December 20th, 1987, was supposed to be a normal trip for the passenger ferry MV Doña Paz, on its way from Leyte to Manila. The ship was dangerously full, packed with people going home for Christmas. Among the crew was Quartermaster Rogelio Roger Agustin. Just before midnight, in the Tabla Strait, the unbelievable happened. The Doña Paz crashed into the oil tanker MT Vector, starting a huge, terrible fire. The sea itself caught fire. It would become the deadliest peacetime sea disaster in history. In the middle of pure terror and chaos, as flames covered the ferry, Roger Agustin's training and dedication took over. He was one of the few crew members who didn't panic. He knew the ship was doomed. His first thought was to save others. He frantically tried to hand out life jackets, but there were not enough. He shouted instructions, trying to guide scared passengers through the thick black smoke and raging fire towards the water, which was their only terrible chance of survival. Roger himself was forced to jump into the burning sea. The heat was so intense it felt like his skin was melting. He swam through fire and debris, his lungs burning from the poisonous smoke. He found a small group of survivors holding onto a piece of wreckage and helped pull them to safety, keeping them floating until help arrived hours later. Of the estimated 4,386 people on board the Doña Paz, only 24 survived. Roger Agustin was one of them. His survival was not just luck, it was because of his will to live and his natural duty to protect. In the face of unimaginable horror, he was a protector. Heroism isn't always found in the heat of battle. Sometimes it's in the cold, dark depths of the ocean. done in silence, far from anyone watching. This is the story of Romeo "Romy" Balboa, a United States Navy diver. In 1991, during Operation Desert Storm, Romy was part of a very special team given one of the most dangerous jobs you can imagine: clearing underwater mines in the Persian Gulf. Iraqi forces had filled the shipping lanes with hundreds of mines to stop the Allied ships. Every dive was a dance with death. Romy and his team would go down into the murky water where you couldn't see anything, their only guide a thin rope and the steady beat of their own heart. They would search for the mines by hand, feeling their way through the darkness. Once a mine was found, the careful process of making it safe began. One wrong move, one accidental touch in the wrong place, would mean instant death not just for the diver, but for any ship nearby. Romy did this terrifying job day after day, his calm manner and steady hands a lifeline for the entire naval operation. His dedication was quiet, exact, and unseen. There were no crowds cheering, no medals given after every successful mission. It was just him, the darkness, and the constant threat of being destroyed. After his impressive naval career, Romy settled into a quiet civilian life, his incredible bravery known only to his fellow divers. His story is a powerful reminder that some of the most important acts of service are done alone. He didn't just clear mines, he cleared the path for others, a silent guardian who made the seas safe, one terrifying breath at a time. For many years, the special group of United States Navy aviation rescue swimmers was only for men. The training is known for being very tough, designed to remove all but the strongest people, both physically and mentally. Their motto is, "So others may live." In 2010, a Filipino-American from Virginia Beach named Angelica Angie Malabanan broke that barrier, becoming one of the first women to earn the special wings of a rescue swimmer. Her dedication wasn't just to the job, but to showing that bravery has no gender. Her big test came almost right away. Shortly after she qualified, a terrible 7.0 magnitude earthquake hit Haiti. Angie's helicopter group was sent to help as part of the huge effort to bring aid. They flew mission after mission, lifting supplies and evacuating people who were badly hurt. During one flight over a faraway, hard-to-reach village, they saw a young Haitian girl with a serious, life-threatening leg injury. Landing was impossible. The only way to save her was for a rescue swimmer to be lowered down. Without a second thought, Angie Malabanan was clipped into the harness. She was lowered from the helicopter, pushed around by the strong wind from the rotor, into a scene of chaos and desperation. On the ground, she quickly made the girl stable, got her ready to be lifted, and hooked both of them onto the hoist. It was a perfect rescue, done with the calm professionalism that is the mark of a rescue swimmer. For the scared young girl looking up, Angie wasn't just a rescuer. She was like an angel coming down from the sky. Angie's jump was more than a rescue. It was a powerful symbol of hope and a testament to a new generation of Filipino strength. The story of Filipino sailors is not just about the past. It is a living, breathing tradition being carried forward by a new generation. Meet Janelle Santiago, a 2023 student at the United States Merchant Marine Academy, one of the nation's most respected federal service schools. As a Filipina-American woman, she represents the future of sea leadership, standing on the shoulders of the great people who came before her, from the galleon pioneers to the Hampton Roads stewards. Her journey is guided by a different kind of compass, one of family history, new ideas, and a deep sense of purpose. Janelle's story is one of modern cleverness. Growing up, she was inspired by her family's history of service and her own interest in the sea. She did very well in science, technology, engineering, and math, seeing the sea industry not just as a job, but as a complex system of planning, engineering, and world money matters. For her, dedication isn't just about handling tough times. It's about mastering the technical skills and leadership qualities needed to deal with the challenges of the 21st century, from keeping supply chains safe to protecting the environment. When asked about her path, Janelle talks about serving others as a leader, a concept deeply rooted in Filipino culture. She believes a leader's job is to empower their crew, to listen, and to lead by example, just like the quiet, selfless acts of people like Trinidad of the USS Indianapolis. She sees her education not as a personal win, but as a responsibility to her community and her country. Janelle Santiago is more than just a student. She is a promise that the spirit of the Filipino sailor, strong, clever, and dedicated, will continue to guide ships safely to shore for generations to come. From wooden ships to steel carriers, dedication at sea hasn't changed. It's the quiet promise that while the ocean may be vast and uncaring, Filipinos will not be. These 10 crew members, some names partly erased by salt and time, showed that heroism isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a steady hand on the steering wheel when the storm says to let go. Their stories are threads in a much larger picture, one that is woven into the very core of who we are as a people. They remind us that our history was not just written on land, but mapped across every ocean on Earth. Their legacy is a challenge to us all, to look beyond the famous news stories and see the quiet bravery that truly moves the world forward. From Jose Calugas's battlefield bravery to Angie Malabanen's leap of faith, their actions echo a single powerful truth, that service and sacrifice are the true north on our moral compass. Remember them next time you watch the sunset over Manila Bay. The water still shines with their reflection, reminding us the Philippines was never just a nation on islands. It's a people who carried the islands on their shoulders and sailed it straight into history. If their names felt new, that's exactly why we share them. Hit like so the computer program shows this to more countrymen, subscribe for more untold stories, and tell us below, which sailor deserves the next big movie? Every click, every comment helps keep their memory alive, making sure that these unsung heroes finally get the recognition they have long deserved. Because their stories are not just history, they are our heritage. Thank you very much, and until the next story.